Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the latest headlines. Uncertainty continues in Maharashtra ahead of the trust vote and Speaker's election today. Shiv Sena candidate to contest for Speaker's post, making it a three-way contest. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend the 12th ASEAN-India Summit in Naypyidaw, Myanmar today, besides bilateral discussions with leaders of Southeast Asian nations on the sidelines. Centre forms probe committee after tragedy strikes mass sterilization camp in Chhattisgarh. 11 women die after surgeries go horribly wrong. 4 health officials suspended. And chess ace Vishwanathan Anand mounts a stellar comeback to outclass current world champion Magnus Carlsen in the third game of the World Chess Championship. Well, it's just a few hours to go now before Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis faces a floor test in the State Assembly. But there's still no real clarity on how the BJP plans to cobble up together the numbers. The BJP and the Shiv Sena continued their tug-of-war through Tuesday, with neither side giving up hopes of a breakthrough. There are indications that back-channel talks are still on and a solution might be announced just before the election of Assembly Speaker this morning. The Sena has thrown its hat in the ring for the Speaker's post, making it a three-way contest between the BJP, Shiv Sena and the Congress. As per the agenda circulated by the Assembly Secretariat, the Speaker's election is slated at 11 a.m. It would be followed by a motion seeking trust of the House and the Fadnavis government. Both the Shiv Sena and the NCP have issued a whip to their MLAs to be present for the crucial Assembly session today. The BJP, which has already been offered support from the NCP, seemed confident of winning over 20 to 22 MLAs before the voting starts. This is apart from the 122 MLAs the party has and what it needs to just cross the halfway mark of 145.
Anyone and all of those who want to support in the development of Maharashtra will accept their support. May not be possible to include them in the government, and we'd like Shiv Sena to come along with us.
Moving on, now the Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be attending the 12th ASEAN-India Summit in Myanmar today. He will also meet heads of states of Singapore, Thailand and South Korea on the sidelines of the summit. Ahead of his visit, Modi said yesterday that ASEAN is at the core of India's Act East policy and that was looking forward to discussing with the leaders how to take bilateral relationships to a new level. He met President of Myanmar, Thein Sein, yesterday with the connectivity, culture and commercial contacts being the focus of discussions. The Prime Minister will also meet opposition leader and Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi today. He will attend the 9th East Asian Summit tomorrow.
After his arrival at the Naypyidaw airport, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached the presidential palace where he was given a guard of honor. After his meeting with President Thein Sein, Modi tweeted, "Very good meeting with President Thein Sein. We had extensive discussions covering various aspects of our bilateral relations."
Interest levels of Indian industry, India Inc. in Myanmar has really increased over the past, I'd say since 2011-2012. After the process of review of sanctions took place, and that is when really our company started feeling that this is a country in which we should be looking at with greater interest. So all said and done, this is a relationship which is on the up and we hope to be able to make a lot of progress over the next few months.
In a 45-minute meet, both leaders are reported to have discussed issues relating to trade.
Bilateral trade is well below potential. In fact, this was also raised by President Thein Sein and Prime Minister. Both felt, given that we are neighbors, bilateral trade, which is approximately 2 billion, is too low. There is potential for growing.
It was the first of the meetings that Modi will be having with over 40 world leaders in the course of the next 10 days. A key highlight will be his interaction with Chinese Premier Li Keqiang on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit.
The Prime Minister will also be meeting his Chinese counterpart, Premier Li Keqiang, at Naypyidaw.
Modi is expected to make a strong pitch to enhance regional connectivity at the one-day 12th annual ASEAN-India Summit that starts on Wednesday. Modi will also be meeting Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, South Korean President Park Geun-hye and Singaporean President Tony Tan at the summit in Myanmar. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning is Tridivesh Singh Maini, Senior Research Associate, General School of International Studies. Good morning, Tridivesh, and thanks for joining me on the program. Let's talk about Prime Minister Modi's visit first to Myanmar, and what is it that, the country, India rather, expects from this visit? The bilateral trade between the two countries already announced by the Speaker of the MEA said that, the trade between the two countries is extremely low and there is very high potential there to try and, take it to another level.
I think the first thing is, as we all know, Myanmar is a conduit to Southeast Asia. I mean, it's a very strong component of our Look East, or what has been called the Act East policy.
Act East policy, yes.
And while in terms of, yes, there is, Myanmar is very rich in natural resources and the private sector has been trying to, get in and make investments. But there are other areas where India can really assist Myanmar, and that is where I think this talk about the India-China competition, India and China competing with each other. I don't think India necessarily needs to compete with China because they have their own strengths. Where we can really help Myanmar is, I think, in spheres like information technology. I think during Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's visit in 2012, MOUs were signed in areas like agriculture. So I think if we can tap, for example, the service sector. And because we have a strong service sector and help Myanmar out in that. And then along with that, we look at the non-economic component. So you look at soft power, you look at Buddhism. We can, for that we first of all need connectivity. And I think in that context, the road to Mandalay still seems elusive because the Imphal Mandalay bus was to begin and it's been delayed. So I think the connectivity between the Northeast and Myanmar should be high on the agenda. And for example, the Indo-Myanmar, Thailand, this highway, that also should be high on the priority. And I think apart from that, basically we need to give a very clear indicator that, we are not here to compete with China. They have their own strengths. I don't think China should set the agenda for us. What happens many a time is we get distracted.
We should set our own agenda as far as Myanmar is concerned. And, the ASEAN summit is also going to take place today. Prime Minister Modi is expected to meet many of the leaders from these 10 countries as well. What is it that we're going to expect from that? I mean, these 10 countries are extremely crucial in terms of their GDP growth, and also they've done their economies are growing tremendously. So that's another thing that we need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I think, and already, I mean, during his period as Chief Minister of Gujarat also, he had visited many of these countries, and of course he may not, as Prime Minister, he's not necessarily met all of them and not had interactions. But I think again while there are synergies which we can explore in the economic realm and as far as connectivity is concerned, and of course we have cultural linkages. Also, I think many other countries in ASEAN have the same apprehension about the Chinese hegemony in the region, and that's where I think we can explore new areas. For example, even in the context of Myanmar, I think, for example, Singapore and Japan are going in a big way. So I think India and Japan can easily explore synergies because last year, I mean, there's been talk about Japanese investing in the Northeast. So, for example, let's say our connectivity between the Northeast and Myanmar, we can seek assistance from Japan and join hands. They have their own strengths, we have our own. Similarly, in the case of Singapore too, India and Singapore can explore projects in Myanmar.
So, is the focus going to be the South China Sea this time around as far as the ASEAN summit is concerned? Because all these countries have some kind of an interest there.
Absolutely. I mean, that is due to strategic and economic reasons, that's going to be high on the agenda. But I think India should, I mean, obviously, so far the Prime Minister has shown that he's a very consummate diplomat as well. That should not be the only issue. That can be one of the important issues. But I think, again, it's basically, we should not fall into a trap set by others. And we should, I think if we can set our own agenda, and that can be one of the important components. But I think...
But one of the main components, even Prime Minister Modi spoke about it before he left for his 10-day visit. He spoke about the black money issue, and he said he's going to bring it up with some of the other countries. How interested really are the other 10 countries going to be as far as the black money issue is concerned?
I think that was with regards to G20 summit.
Yes.
I think... as the case, I think there may be some countries which are interested, but I don't think again that's going to be like it can really be at the forefront of everything. So there are many others in the case of Australia as well. You have an Indian PM going after 28 years.
Yes.
So there are strategic
Almost 3
issues,
decades.
and again you can look at. There's been talk of an India, Australia, Indonesia alliance, so in the Asia Pacific. So I think those are the issues which are going to really, be at
Come
the
to the
forefront.
forefront.
Yeah.
Yes, all right. And as far as, the next few days are concerned, of course, the Myanmar leg is going to get over soon, and then he's moving on to Fiji and then Australia. And you spoke about how, no Indian head of state has been to Australia in the last 28 years. What is it that India is looking forward to as far as Fiji and Australia are concerned?
I think with Australia, of course, there are strategic issues like on the nuclear issue, and Prime Minister Abbott also had a very reasonably successful visit, but that was very brief. So they'll tap into bilateral issues as well as the potential of trilaterals. So, for example, on certain issues, India, Australia, Japan, India, Australia, Indonesia, those are alliances you can look at. But Fiji is very significant because they have a large, there's a number of people of Indian origin. So we have not been able to really tap on that. And that's very interesting because, when you look at the diaspora of countries like the UK or the US, we have been reaching out.
Yes.
But as far as people in Fiji are concerned, we have not reached out enough to them. And that's where it's a very significant move, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Devesh,
you
for
very
joining
much.
us
My
on the
pleasure.
program this
My
morning
pleasure.
and
Yeah.
putting things into perspective
Thank you.
for us. Moving on now, a team of doctors from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences has left for Bilaspur in Chhattisgarh to probe the deaths of at least 11 women who died after undergoing sterilization surgery. Nearly 50 others are still in critical condition. A protest or a bandh has been called in Chhattisgarh today as the state government-run sterilization program runs into serious controversy. Here's a detailed report.
A mass sterilization camp in Bilaspur turned into a massive tragedy on Tuesday. Medical negligence killed 11 women and left dozens more battling for life.
लगभग 55 महिलाएं हैं जिनका तकलीफ की जानकारी मिली है और माननीय मुख्यमंत्री महोदय ने ऑलरेडी जांच के आदेश दिया है। एक मेडिकल टीम रायपुर से रवाना हो गया है, मेडिकल डायरेक्टर भी आ रहे हैं।
The incident led to massive protests by the families of the deceased. The opposition Congress demanded the immediate resignation of State Chief Minister Raman Singh and Health Minister Amar Agarwal for the incident.
तो हम मांग करते हैं कि हेल्थ मिनिस्टर को तुरंत बर्खास्त करना चाहिए। वैसे तो इतने कांडों के बाद मुख्यमंत्री का इस्तीफा ही बनता है।
Other political leaders and social activists also sought adequate compensation for families of the victims.
It is an indication and also a commentary on the extreme callousness of the authorities of that state.
How can it happen? And in this incident, government should immediately conduct a thorough inquiry, and the government should check verify the credentials of those doctors who have conducted this procedure.
The state government suspended 4 health officials, including the chief medical officer of Bilaspur, and ordered a high-level probe. The Union Health Ministry also constituted a 5-member panel to ascertain the cause of the deaths. An FIR was registered against the doctors. Prime Minister Narendra Modi asked Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Raman Singh to thoroughly investigate and take quick action in the case.
क्योंकि ये शासकीय कार्यक्रम में हुआ है, नेग्लिजेंसी से हुआ है, उनको परिवार को ज़्यादा आश्वस्त करने की दृष्टि से उन्हें बेहतर मदद कैसे मिल सकता है, तो 4 लाख रुपया प्रति जो मृतक परिवार के राशि देने का भी निर्णय लिया गया है। और पीड़ित परिवार जो आज एडमिट हैं, जिनका इलाज चल रहा है, जो घर बार छोड़ के पूरा परिवार यहाँ हैं, उन प्रत्येक परिवारों को पूरी इलाज की व्यवस्था सरकार के माध्यम से होगा।
News reports said the women are all residents of the neighboring villages in Bilaspur. Most of them are from BPL families. They were discharged soon after surgery on Saturday, but as their condition worsened, they were referred to the Bilaspur District Hospital on Monday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Leaders from 55 nations will take part in a 2-day international conference next week to commemorate the 125th birth anniversary of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The two-day event highlights the legacy of India's Prime Minister. The Congress has invited 15 political parties from other countries and all like-minded political parties. A 9-member delegation led by Party Vice President Rahul Gandhi will represent Congress at the conference. A website dedicated to this event was also launched by the party, carrying a lot of material related to Nehru, including his speeches. The Congress has clarified, however, that it has not invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his party, the BJP, or any of its allies.
The New Delhi Conference, as we are going to call it, has the theme Nehru's worldview and his legacy, democracy, inclusion and empowerment.
Well, we'll slip into a short break now, but still to come on the show, no breakthrough yet in talks between Iran and the US on the nuclear question as the November 21st deadline nears. Welcome back. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. Let's now take a look at some other big news events lined up for the day today in our special segment, The Day Ahead. Public sector bank employees across the country will be on a one-day strike today. Normal banking operations in public sector banks across the country are likely to be affected in the agitation for wage revision. The staff had gone on a nationwide strike for 2 days in February this year. The wage revision of public sector bank employees has been due since November 2012. The consumer price inflation figures for October will be released today. It is expected that consumer price inflation may cool to further in October. Now, the recent slowdown in inflation has been due to falls in local food prices that accounts for 50% of the CPI. Falling inflation prices puts pressure on the RBI to reduce interest rates. General Dalbir Singh Suhag will be conferred the title of honorary rank of General of Nepal Army by President Ram Baran Yadav. This is the Army Chief's second visit abroad. He had visited Bhutan earlier this month. Minister of State with independent charge for Commerce and Industry Nirmala Sitharaman will deliver a special address at the inauguration of the Services Conclave 2014. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will deliver the inaugural address at the Shangri-La Hotel in Delhi. The 2 days Services Conclave aims to discuss ways to boost services exports. The shares of services in the country's GDP was 57% in 2013-14. On to some international news now. Talks between the United States, Iran and the European Union on Iran's nuclear program have again failed to produce any kind of a breakthrough. The countries have been racing against time to meet the deadline of November 24 to strike an agreement. But at the end of the talks, all three parties said that there's a lot more left to be done.
Iran, the United States and the European Union ended 2 days of high-level talks on Tehran's nuclear program. For the last couple of days, the US and Iran sought to overcome deep differences, allay mutual suspicions, and bring 12 months of diplomatic brinkmanship to the point of a breakthrough. But there is no immediate sign that they've bridged the gaps ahead of a November 24th deadline for an agreement. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said no progress had been made in these talks. The US says there is still time left.
The discussions have been tough, direct, and serious. And as you know, the political directors will continue to stay in Oman for a yet to be determined amount of time. They'll be reconvening, of course, for the already announced round of meetings that are next week in Europe.
The key sticking point is thought to be the number and type of uranium-enriching centrifuges that Iran should be allowed to keep. The US wants Iran to meet its obligations to get relief from heavy economic sanctions. US Vice President Joe Biden reiterated that America will not let Iran build up nuclear weapons capability.
I've heard so much malarkey about our position on Iran. Let me say it to you clearly, in Biden-esque way. We will not let Iran acquire a nuclear weapon, period.
So now all eyes will be on Vienna next week for a last-ditch push to meet the November 24th deadline. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now take a look at some of the other news-making stories from across the globe in our segment World Wrap. At least 37 militants, including some foreign fighters believed to be involved in the deadly Wagah border attack, were killed by Pakistani military, which also lost 6 soldiers in the western northwestern tribal region. Pakistan jets pounded militant hideouts in the Ras area of Khyber along the Pak-Afghan border, killing at least 13 militants, including some foreigners believed to be involved in the November 2nd suicide blast at the Wagah border with India, in which 63 people died. The airstrikes are part of a long-awaited operation against foreign and local militants. Sri Lanka says President Mahinda Rajapaksa is ready to pardon the 5 Indian fishermen sentenced to death in Sri Lanka if the Indian High Commission in Colombo does not proceed with an appeal against the sentence. The sudden development came on a day when an appeal was filed against the death sentence in the Colombo High Court. The Indian High Commission said that they would decide the next course of action on Wednesday. A Sri Lankan court had recently sentenced the 5 fishermen to death on the charges of possessing narcotics. Philippine President Benigno Aquino said he and Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping had a meeting of minds on a territorial row that has soured relations between the South China Sea states. The Philippines is in a dispute with China over parts of the sea, including the Scarborough Shoal, an area believed to be rich in oil and natural gas, as well as fisheries resources. China seized control of the shoal in June 2012 and has prevented Philippine fishermen from getting close to the rocky outcrop, a rich fishing ground. Spain's regional Catalonia authorities are proposing that the Spanish Prime Minister establish a permanent dialogue over Catalan independence. This comes after Catalans voted in favor of breaking away from Madrid on Sunday. The Spanish government does not recognize that symbolic vote and has dismissed secession. Spanish Deputy Prime Minister said that it will be difficult to reach an agreement because neither his government nor his party will agree to secession. About 13.6 million people, that's equal to the population of London, have been displaced by conflicts in Syria and Iraq, and many are without food or shelter as winter starts, the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, said on Tuesday. The 13.6 million includes 7.2 million displaced within Syria and an increase from a long-held UN estimate of 6.5 million, as well as 3.3 million Syrian refugees abroad. In Iraq, 1.9 million have been displaced this year by tribal fighting and the advance of Islamic State. And a look now at the global stock markets. US stocks were all-time high on Tuesday as gains in home builder shares helped offset losses among industrial companies. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 1.16 points or 0.01% to close the business at 17,614. Standard & Poor's 500 index gained 1.42 points or 0.07% to end the day at 2,039. The Nasdaq Composite added 8.94 points or 0.19% to finish at 4,660. Gold prices plunged on Tuesday by 320 or 0.24% to 25,950 per 10 grams as the dollar strengthened and dampened demand for the precious metal. Silver fell by 650 rupees or 0.19% to 36,500 per kilogram on poor offtake by industrial units and coin makers. Asian stocks rose on Wednesday as Japanese shares climbed after the yen depreciated to a 7-year low. Japan's Nikkei is up by 210.37 points or 1.23% to 17,334 at the start of the day's trading. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 104.46 points or 0.43% to 23,808 at the start of trading. But we'll slip into another short break now. All the sports updates are lined up for you on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's now bring you the news and updates from the sports arena in our segment Sports Beat. Vishwanathan Anand pulled one back and scored a crushing victory over defending champion Magnus Carlsen in the third game of the World Chess Championship. Having lost the second game of the match, Anand was almost in a must-win situation and the Indian ace came up with his best effort against Carlsen. The match is now tied with each player having a point and a half with 9 games left to go. The next match is on Wednesday and the 12-game championship is due to be completed on November 28th. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has invited Indian cricket legends Kapil Dev and Sunil Gavaskar to be a part of the official delegation of his upcoming Australia tour. The former captains will accompany the Prime Minister-led delegation to 3 Australian cities, Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne. The Prime Minister will be in Australia for the G20 summit and will also visit the historic Melbourne cricket ground, which will host the 2015 World Cup final. Hosts FC Pune City were held to a 1-1 draw by Chennai FC in an Indian Super League match at the Sri Shiv Chhatrapati Sports Complex Stadium yesterday. Pune pulled ahead early in the first half through Konstantinos, but Chennai restored parity after the break when John Valencia scored. With the draw, Chennai FC went level on points with leaders Atletico de Kolkata at 12 points from 7 matches but stayed in the second spot, having an inferior goal difference to the table toppers. Home favourite Andy Murray stayed afloat at the ATP World Tour Finals with a 6-3-7-5 defeat of big serving Canadian Milos Raonic on Tuesday after losing to Japan's Kei Nishikori in his opening Group B match at the season's finale on Sunday. Murray knew only a win against Raonic would keep his hopes alive. He delivered with a solid display at a jam-packed O2 Arena. Murray needed one break of serve to clinch the opening set and struck again at 5-5 in the second as Raonic faltered. And finally, sand architecture enthusiasts in Brazil look to break the record for the largest sand castle ever built. The structure is 12 meters tall. Take a look at these visuals. I'm going to leave you with these as well. Have a nice day.